This is Diane Mourglia-Swerdlow with another edition of Cooking with Janet, expansions.com. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to divert from what I normally do with you, because normally what I do is I show you how to cook lots of healthy food and the ways that are easy for you to do and feed your body. Well, today we're going to cook kind of a fun food. I don't usually make it very often, but I made it over the holidays and people said, oh, we want to know how to do it. So I thought, okay, I'm going to show you. We're going to actually make bread today, and it is not gluten-free, but it is kind of the lesser of the evils. Plus, once in a while, if you want to have something, I would recommend that you make it yourself versus buy it at the store. And as I said, it's kind of a fun thing to do. You may think it's complicated, but it's not. So if you've never attempted baking bread and you want to try, this is not the easiest recipe I have. I will show you another recipe another time that's a little bit easier. But as I said, once in a while, 2 or 3 times a year, it's nice to have a little bit of different treat. Now, if you want to if you have real gluten issues, then you are going to want to avoid this, but it's still fun to watch. If you're kind of semi-gluten, free, or if you want to have this once in a while for a holiday dinner, I always tell people technically you should be able to eat anything. It is really the mind pattern that makes the distinction how it affects your body. So when I eat this, I go with the lesser of the evils. I flush with violet. I tell my body just to pass on through. And of course, I don't eat half a loaf of bread. I have a slice, maybe 2 tops, and I use that as my dessert, because gluten-free flour, wheat flour, grains, really, remember when they are in your body, they really do convert to sugars. So you want to remember that. And I like mine with a little bit of Cindy's fruit nectar on it, or sometimes toasted with a little butter. But as a general rule, I don't eat a lot, and I will explain it as we go along. So the first thing I want you to see, what I have in here is 5½ cups of organic white wheat flour. Now, this isn't not whole grain, and a lot of people will say, why not whole grain? Because whole grain wheat flour actually has more gluten in it. And so if you're a little bit gluten intolerant, or you don't want your system to deal with the gluten, it's actually better to have this kind of flour than the flour with gluten. It has some, but it's just not to that specific degree. So I prefer to cook with this. I've done whole grain. I've done a variety of things. As I've mentioned to you before, I have cooked as far as when I could stand on a chair. My mother had me cooking. So I have cooked for decades, and I've done a lot of different things. If you ask me, there's not a lot I haven't done successfully, unsuccessfully, or just for fun, or to try out, or to experiment with. So that's what I'm telling you. What I'm telling you is kind of the culmination of many years of research, personally and professionally. So in here again, I have 5½ cups of the organic white wheat flour. Now I'm going to make this on my KitchenAid. My KitchenAid is actually a refurbished one. It was a gift. I don't know how expensive it was. You saw me do this with the masa. Use this the grinder. I don't use my KitchenAid a lot, but when I do, it's nice to have it. Before I had the KitchenAid, I made my bread in a bowl. So if you don't have this, then don't think I can't make this. Yes, you can make it too. It just takes a little bit more elbow grease. But I do enjoy my KitchenAid, and I'm going to show you how to use it. So I take my 5½ cups of flour. This is the bread hook, the dough hook. Unplug this, or it goes there. Okay, I always want to make sure things are unplugged before I start doing it, and that they're turned off, because I don't want to lose any fingers, and I don't want you to either. So the dough hook goes on here. And I'm going to raise it up, and I'm just to make sure everything works. Now you're going to do this really, really slow, because otherwise you're going to have flour all over the place. Just have to plug it in. Okay. And I have, turn this off so you can hear me, I have in this bowl yeast, which is what we use to make the bread raise. Now you can get this in the store in little tiny packets. Each little packet can be a couple of dollars, and this will take 3 packets of yeast. What I do is I buy mine at the health food store, and I buy it in bulk. And it was $4 for a huge, let me show you what it looks like. This is the bag of yeast that I got. and it's like $4.50, $4.59 at my health food store, and this will last you like forever. And even if it has an expiration date on it, I have used it well past the expiration date, and as far as I know, it has not gone bad. So if you buy it like this, if you think you're going to make bread more than once, this is the better bargain to spend this for $4.50 versus a one-time for $6. It depends on your store, but I don't know why they want yeast to be so expensive, but it is. Anyway, you want to keep it stored in your refrigerator, so I'm just going to put that here. I have 8 teaspoons of yeast, which I just took out of the refrigerator because you want to keep that cold, and I'm going to put it in here with my flour, and then I'm just going to gently stir it around. Okay, the next thing that I'm going to do is I have some water that's boiled. I need 1.5 cups of water. Now, if your water is too hot, you will kill the yeast. I believe they say to have your water around 110 degrees, but you want to remember what I tell you. I'm not going to stress over my cooking. What I usually do is I want it just lukewarm, like if you were going to feed a baby, that kind of warm on your wrist. What I like to do, and I do mine a lot differently than other people. I do it as quickly as I can, as efficiently as I can. As I said, it's a voice of experience. So I need 1.5 cups of water. I take my boiling water and I put in 1/3 cup, approximate, or actually it's 1.5 cups. Yeah, I think I put in 2/3. That's half of what I need. Then I have 1 teaspoon of sea salt, which I'm going to put in, and I have a tablespoon of honey. Now the recipe calls for a tablespoon of sugar. The sugar is what feeds the yeast and makes it grow and makes your bread raise. So I'm going to put this in here. You can also use a tablespoon of maple syrup. You can use a tablespoon of white sugar if you have that in your house, brown sugar, coconut sugar. Doesn't really matter. It's not really going to affect the taste. This is just what I have on hand, and this is what I prefer to use. So I put that in there, and after my salt, remember this is very hot. It will kill the yeast, so I don't want to put it in now. It's very hot. After I have my salt mixed up, then I take room temperature water and I fill it up to 1.5 cups. Okay. And I'm going to test it. It's still a little warm. I also have 3 tablespoons of butter. This is goat butter that I'm going to put in, and this will melt it for me here. So, and it will also cool it down a little bit as I stir it. And again, if you do it too hot, it's not going to rise. Too cold, it's not going to rise. And again, you don't want to stress. Your bread will be what it will be. Even if it doesn't rise a lot, it will still be good. So you're really not going to waste your ingredients. It's a lot of trial and error. I have learned what works for me. I'm doing my best to share with you some simple methods. Let's see how it feels. It's still a little warmer than what I like, so I'm going to stir a little air into it. Aerate it a little bit. If you take your butter right out of the refrigerator, that will cool it down a little bit as well. That's going to be okay. And the other thing I have, my last ingredient, is I have 3 eggs. And that is going to also go in with my flour and yeast. And I've had these sitting out a little bit, so they are room temperature. Mix that up. Okay, and that's really it. So the ingredients are very simple to do. Once you have those, and all we have to do is start this at a slow temperature, or slow speed, so that your flour doesn't go all over the place. Or if you have a bowl, you're doing it by hand, you'll just want to mix up your flour and your yeast a little bit, and then you're going to pour this in and mix a little bit at a time. And then your eggs are going to go in. You're going to just keep mixing. And it's really pretty simple. You're going to stir it up until all your dry and wet ingredients are mixed together by hand if you're using if you're just using a big bowl and a spoon. And once that happens, you're going to knead your dough, and that's what activates your yeast and the threads of your wheat and all of that together so that it will actually rise. So once I get this mixed together, I'm going to show you what it looks like, and I'm just going to turn this on and let it go, and you'll see the change in dough. But when I take it out, I'm going to show you how to knead it so that if you need to do it yourself, that you know how to hand knead. And remember, I've done this many years by hand as a general rule until I had my KitchenAid, and even then a lot of times I did it by hand because I wasn't used to the KitchenAid and I didn't want to ruin my bread. So here we go. Take a look at the bread. You can see how it's mixing together with the dough hook. I'm going to speed it up just a little bit for you. Okay, now that all the flour is mixed up, you can see how it's all accumulated around the dough hook. I'm just going to turn this on and let it go for about 5 or 6 minutes, but if you do it by hand, you'll want to knead it probably the full 10. And I'll show you when I'm done. So let's let this go for a few minutes, and then I'll show you what to do next. Okay, let's go ahead and turn that off. I'm going to take the bowl off, and I forgot to tell you the name of the bread that I'm making. It is Challah, Challah. It is an Eastern European bread that's often used at family functions for good luck or for holidays. There we go. Okay, so this comes off, and I'll bring it over here because I want to show you how to knead your dough. Now, first of all, let me take out the dough hook. You're going to see how nice this is. You saw what it looked like going in. This is really a beautiful dough. It's got a really nice quality and texture. It's nice and smooth. This is what it's going to look like when you're done kneading it. If you need to do it by hand, after you mix it in your bowl, you're going to take your bread and you're going to work it like this. And this is what makes it smooth. You need to set your timer, and you need to do it for about 10 minutes, and your bread will become smoother and smoother and smoother. Now in the beginning it's going to be sticky, and you can take a little flour and scatter it down here, put it on your bread. But I will tell you, if you use too much flour, if you add too much to your dough, then you are going to get a tough bread. And again, you will know what a tough bread is because when you eat it, it's going to taste different than when you don't have a tough bread. So it's the voice of experience, experiential learning. So the dough hook can do it, or you can do it yourself. But and I'm making it look relatively easy, but you will see how nice and smooth your dough will eventually get like this, and you'll know it's done. But it does take really a good 10 minutes of kneading for this to happen. Once you take it out of the bowl, then I use some kind of olive oil to coat the bowl you're going to use to let it raise. And I put it here. You can cover it with a cloth and set it in your kitchen someplace where there's no drafts. What I do oftentimes is I put it in the lower part of my oven because I'm not using that. So this is going to go in here. And voila, through the magic of television, here we go. This has come out. Now this was way up here, and I had to punch it down because it was really rising. So this is what it's going to look like, except it's going to be more almost mushroom topped. And I'm going to pat it down a little bit. See, it's a little bit stickier now that it's had a chance to raise. I'm going to take it out, and I'm going to kind of mush it together again. And also going to show you how to prepare the challah, because traditionally it is a braided bread, so it's very pretty to serve, and that's why it's nice for holidays. And of course, in a braid, what do we have? We have the three: body, mind, and soul, past, present, future, self over soul, God, mind, conscious, subconscious, superconscious. Now, I will also tell you that this recipe is for 1 loaf of challah. I usually make 2, and you will see why, because through the magic of television, I'm going to show you what it can look like sometimes when it raises. It doesn't always raise as high and as mighty as what you're going to see next after we're done here, but this particular day it did. So let me grab a baking sheet. And this I'm also going to spray so that it's not going to stick. take my knife. I'm going to cut this into 2, approximately. And let me just stick that there for now. And pull this down. Now we need 3 ropes so that we can braid the bread. So with your knife, I'm just going to pull off 3 chunks. And you can see they're going to turn out to be different sizes. Again, I'm not going to stress. Once you cut, it's really hard to make it all go back together again. I've tried that too. So good luck if you want to try it. We're going to make 3 ropes that we can braid. And you know, it depends on the size of your pan. I like to use these baking sheets. They're a good length. And if you want to make them smooth, you know, it's up to you. You know, have fun with it. As I said, do your best not to stress. If it doesn't turn out like what you're going to see that mine turns out, it's okay. Remember, the food that you put into your body represents what's going into your mind. So here we are still, I'm going to utilize this. Remember, everything is a positive and a negative. I'm going to use this as the staff of life, and that is what I'm going to be ingesting in my body, in my food, and I'm going to tell my body what to do with it, and it will all be good once it's there. So what I do is I put the longest one, because usually I wind up with one that's longer than the other. I don't know what will happen with you. You may be better at it than I am once you work at it. And then we just start braiding, and sometimes, you know, it's one over another and crissing and crossing, and you may have to readjust as you move yourself along. That's okay too. And once you have your braid, you just tuck your ends under. Let's see how. This one goes this way. Here we go. Okay. And you can see it may be disproportionate. It doesn't really matter, because once it breaks up, it's going to be really beautiful, and you'll see. Okay, so here's your first braid. We'll go to the second. You see this is raising already. It's already washing out on me. So, and sometimes it will, like I said, it will just be really beautiful, and other times I'll go, oh my gosh, it's not raising, what do I do? Well, you know, that's the way it is that day. The atmosphere is different, you know, it could be the temperature of your water is different, it could be your attitude that's different, you know, we don't really know. So some days are more, it's going to be in your mind more what you want it to turn out to be than other days, such as life itself. Some days we start off with specific intentions and it just does not turn out the way we intend. Sometimes quite the opposite, but that's all right. There's all lessons to be learned, all reasons, and as long as you can keep a reasonable expectation about yourself and not judge or criticize, you're going to do okay. Okay, so again, the longest, what I perceive to be the longest, because your dough will stretch and move, kind of got a mind of its own some days. We're going to just put these side by side. Now remember what I told you, that you can do one loaf. But when you see how the miracle of television, what happened to the next one, you're going to understand why that why I make mine into 2, which can happen. Okay, and we're going to tuck the ends under. Again, you can see it's got a little bit longer here than what I like, but that's okay. It'll grow and do its own thing. Move it over so it can raise. Okay, so that's your next step. Now, this is going to go aside, but look what we have here. Okay, now you see the difference? This was this not too long ago, and now look at how huge these are. So I'm going to put this away so it can also raise and do its thing. And I have my oven at 400 degrees. I'm going to put this under just a little bit so it doesn't pop apart. I'm going to have my oven at 400 degrees. I'm going to put this in, and I'm going to check it after about 20 minutes. It may take longer than that, but let's give it about 20 minutes and I'll see what it looks like. And we'll go from there how much longer, because it's big, it's light, it's puffy, and it's airy. So it may not take so long. It can take up to 30 to 40 minutes. But I always like to check my recipes about halfway through, no matter what I'm doing, whether it's cookies or cake or anything that's in the oven, a meat dish, because you want to see kind of where things are at. Everything in cooking is experience. Is it done? Is it not done? Is it the way I like to eat it? Is it the way you want to eat it? There is no right or wrong way. It's just what do you want and how do you want to eat it, and can you adjust if it doesn't quite turn out the way, or maybe it turns out better than what you thought. So we're going to give it about 20 minutes and then we'll check on it and see what's happening. Okay, thanks for your patience. I took a little break. I don't know if you had a chance to take one, but I want you to see the 3 stages of bread that I was telling you about. So you remember, first of all, we made the bread. So I want you to look here. Remember when I put it in the bowl? This is a very good day for bread to raise. So this is not even totally double yet, but it's getting close. So when this is done, I'm going to say maybe another 30 minutes. That's when I'm going to pull it apart and turn it into the braids. And you can see how these braids, which have not been baked yet, you watched me make these just a few minutes ago, how much they're raising already. Now when you see what I pull out of the oven, you're going to go, oh my gosh. So watch this. Here we go. These are the ones that I did earlier. Is that beautiful or what? Now you can tell when they're done because they're going to sound hollow. Listen. Okay, so it's going to sound hollow, and you can peek. I guess I don't have a, let me grab my spatula so you can see underneath. You may want your bread to be done more, and you can do that. You can cook it as long as you want. There we go. See, it's a little brown under there. And what I like to do when it's fresh out of the oven is I take a little butter, or you can take olive oil, and I just run it over the top because that's going to make it so it doesn't get hard. It gives it a nice shine. The other thing that you can do, which I don't do because I don't really care for seeds that much on bread, but it does give it a very pretty look, is when it's in this stage, you can take your egg white, just the egg white, and stir it up and just kind of gently put it over the top, and then you can take sesame seeds and sprinkle it over, or poppy seeds and sprinkle over, and then when it comes out like this, it will have the seeds on it, and it does give it a very pretty finish. But again, you know, it depends on your personal preference, and this is what I like to have it. Now, again, carb-wise, it's high in carbs. So you want to be mindful of eating it if you have an issue with your carbs. You can take a slice maybe about 1 inch thin, and that's going to be about 20 carbs. So there are a lot in this bread. It depends, again, your own preference. For me, if I do something like this is going to be my dessert. I probably won't have anything else to go along with it. So if you want, remember we've talked about slow carbs like beans. They're complex carbs. They take longer to break down in your system and turn to sugar that your body needs. When you have a fast carb, such as something like this, it's going to go in really fast. If you mix it with food while you're eating, you know, and you have a bite of bread and a bite of something else, it's a little bit slower into your system. If you sit down and eat a piece or two, it's going to go right into your blood sugar. So you want to think about who you are and what your system is and what it can tolerate. So let me wipe my hand here, and I'm going to show you. We're going to open up a bread, a loaf, so you can see how nice it is. And of course, I like to serve it fresh out of the oven. If I have a dinner and I have people over and I make bread, or even for my family, when I'm just about ready to put dinner on the table, my bread goes in the oven. Then when people have sat and they filled their plates with their food, then by then my timer's ringing and I take my bread out. So then people have some nice hot bread to eat with their dinner because I like it fresh out of the oven. So I'm just going to cut it. And you're going to see what beautiful bread this is inside. You see that? It's really lovely. And this happens to be very light because it rose so well. And I'll put, I like goat butter on it, so I'm going to put some goat butter on it. It melts right in. And there's nothing like fresh bread out of the oven. Stewart doesn't like goat butter. He likes cow butter, so I keep organic cow butter around for him. I'm going to put some on this piece. Notice who's getting the bigger piece. I think the cook should have the bigger piece. Okay, and then again, if you want to look at, I'll just cut another piece because I have a feeling that my cameraman might like a piece. But you can see it's a beautiful bread, and it's very lovely to serve on the table. So that's what I have to share with you today. I hope you enjoyed it. As I said, it's a little bit different than what we usually do. I have a couple other bread recipes that are actually easier than this, and this is pretty easy. but have easier still. And of course I do spinach rolls and cinnamon rolls and a variety of other things that are kind of fun to do. So I'll show you. You can add this in or not. It's up to you, but it's nice to know that you have choices and alternatives. Don't get yourself in a rut. I have sometimes myself stressed so hard trying to cook for specific people who have such strict dietary concerns. If it's a health issue, it's one thing, but if it's not really a health issue, it's good to give yourself leeway and flexibility. You want leeway and flexibility in your mind. You want that in the food you ingest. And remember, the bottom line is it all comes from God mind. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to go have some bread and share with my friends and family. And I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Expansions.com.